Good afternoon, Facebook, and welcome to another edition of NASDAQ Speed Reads. I'm your host, Alan Schoenberg with NASDAQ. In a world that's changing faster than ever, the ability for brands and companies to shift their focus to make themselves relevant and their brands relevant in today's world is more important and critical than ever. Joining me today is Alan Adamson, the co-author of Shift Ahead, and also the co-founder and managing partner of Metaforce. You wouldn't say you're a branding agency, you're a
company that helps people shift ahead.
Love it. I love it. So first thing I want to talk about is really early on in the book, there was a quote that caught my eye, and I loved it. I'm going to read a little bit of it, and we'll talk about it. But it's from Thomas Friedman, and he says, when change is happening at 5 miles per hour, if you get off track, it's not that big of a deal. But when change is happening at 500 miles per hour, a small error in navigation can have a huge effect. And I think that's a great setup for what we're going to talk about today.
And that's the reason for the book. Talking to Tom was terrific. And of course, we all sense the world is changing. If I came to you and said, gee, 5 years ago, do you want to invest in a company that would let you ride in strangers' cars or stay in strangers' homes? You'd say, well, thank you very much, Alan. Right. I'll pass on that. But now, so in a world of change happening really fast, not only will you miss the boat, but you could miss an entire market. You could be out of business in a time it took to just think about a change 5 years ago.
So speed is incredibly relevant today, right?
Speed makes everything more difficult.
Yeah, more difficult. So you talked with your co-author Joel Steckel, and yourself talked with about 100 people for this book.
Yep.
What were some of the things that you learned that were, surprises or aha moments, the failures and successes?
Yeah, the surprising thing was most people know they need to shift, but most people fail. And there were many, many reasons people failed. Usually not just one thing, but lots of ways to miss the boat, to miss that train, as Tom was saying. And a few ways maybe to increase your chances. But by and large, even though everyone talks about it, well, we're changing to stay current, and I don't want to be your father's Oldsmobile. Right. Most people end up being your father's Oldsmobile.
Yeah, but change is hard, right?
Yeah, because change is hard for lots of reasons. And one of them is human nature. We've talked about that, Alan. Joel and I talked about it being sort of like Marty Crane's chair on the old Fraser show. You need to realize that your starting point is you prefer that soft, comfortable chair from yesterday versus thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah, or having to go invest in a brand new chair. That
even more difficult. Even more difficult.
Right. So. There's also, you outlined 7 what you called red flags, and I thought there was an interesting theme there. Maybe it was me, but we can talk about data and math and analytics throughout those. So talk about that a little bit and what that means.
Well, the first one is the most obvious, and most people still use sales as a red flag. By the time sales are doing this, another finding is if you wait that long, you're really handicapping your chances to shift ahead. Yeah. Most companies wait till sales fall, and then there's no more gas in the tank. And then if they have an idea how to shift ahead, they can't get it done. And so that's one. The other is data. Many people are saying, oh, look at all this data we're collecting. And most companies are collecting more and more data, but the trick is to spend as much time analyzing the data, looking at the data, thinking about the data, and asking, gee, that's interesting, why?
Yeah, well, big data has been talked about for years, right? And it seems to me what you're focusing on is that shift more towards finding the right data and understanding the right things that you need to focus on, not just hear a lot of the numbers.
Right, and it can't be just the data department. I had a great conversation with Gary Briggs, CMO at Facebook, and he told me about that. Yes, one of the benefits Facebook has is the culture has grown up not only collecting data, but using it. So 5 years ago, when they saw pictures starting to appear more on Facebook, they knew they had to make a shift and acquire Instagram, even though the street said, what, are you crazy for buying it? So part of it is collecting it. The other part is having a culture that embraces it, and you make a decision on it, as opposed to, gee, it's sort of interesting, there are more pictures on Facebook. Let's talk about what we're going to do this afternoon for our new promotion in Cleveland.
And that was a shift for them.
Yeah, it was a shift.
So, well, I come from a background in marketing and communications. This really isn't a book about marketing and branding. It's really a business book. And you talk a lot about DNA, finding your true north. Like, how does that fit into, like, if you're a CFO or a head of recruiting, for instance?
It was, because when I was in the marketing business, more and more clients were coming to me and saying, gee, can you help me? My sales are falling, my competition's eating my lunch. And it was clear that just traditional, let's tell your story better, or to put some top spin on the ball, was not going to make it. So we needed to look at organizations that were factors that were deeper than just how can you just change the advertising. You know, one of the common things in marketing is, oh, sales are bad, let's just change advertising because it's quick and it doesn't require you to think about your product, your organization. And the other big shift that is happening is that it's not the marketing department that drives it, it's the entire company. Everyone at the company is responsible for the product, its relevance, the brand. If you don't get everyone together and understand what are you good at, what are you not good at, you get into trouble.
So it may actually even go back to when we talked about data and math and analytics, understanding your own employees and the culture, right?
Because if you have a culture that doesn't like numbers and is not analytic, you could have a whole warehouse full of numbers. Mm-hmm. It's not going to make a difference. So if you don't have that natural DNA, we were talking earlier,
right?
If I want to be a great basketball player, that's terrific. Alan, good luck to you. At 5'8", you're no matter how much I practice. Okay. For me, 5'8", no matter how much I practice, and same with companies. Some companies say, I want to be, a smart digital company. We did the Kodak story in the book.
Yeah.
And part of the Kodak challenge was they wanted to be digital, but their DNA, they were a chemical company.
Yeah.
They were a sales company. So no matter how hard they tried to be a digital company, practice couldn't make perfect.
Right. So let's shift a little bit about leadership, because obviously leadership is critical as companies try to shift in this fast pace. There's 5 things you talked about. One in particular I was interested in was on vision, because we hear so much about
it's a buzzword. We need a leader who has a vision.
Right.
Great.
But you talk about peripheral vision, which I thought was really fascinating. So talk about what you mean by peripheral vision.
We found that lots of people were really looking far down the road, but it was often the road they were on.
Yeah.
So if you're Hertz, you're worried about National and Alamo, and you're looking at the car rental category. You're not really looking off peripherally to say. It happened when I took my son to college. I rented a car. He looked at me and said, "Dad, what are you renting a car for? I already have the car on my phone."
Yeah.
And so, if you don't have peripheral vision, most disruption is happening not from your competitors right in front of you, but from things happening on the side or even behind you.
Right. Interesting. So, the last chapter of your book, Success is Never Final. Mm-hmm. We're talking about fast pace and going faster and faster. So put that in perspective of it never being final. What does that mean?
That's a quote actually from Bill Marriott, who is one of the great innovators and leaders in terms of shifting an organization ahead. We have the Marriott story in the book. But it is one of the red flags and one of the barriers to successful shifting is we've got it, we're great. Mm-hmm. It ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Let's keep on going. Let's do what we did yesterday. And so if you get arrogant, BlackBerry was arrogant, if you get cocky with yourself and feel like, I'm the best, that's probably number one warning sign that, hang on, you won't be the best tomorrow. You have to take a bit of the Andy Grove, only the paranoid survive attitude.
So it's a circle. It's not linear.
Yeah, most people think it's linear, and you've arrived, and let's go open the champagne. But right after you open the champagne, you got to be worried about what's coming tomorrow.
Interesting. Well, Alan, this is a great conversation. I really appreciate you joining us. If you're interested in learning more about shifting ahead, slowing down in a fast-paced world, take a few minutes to read the book.
Something
Some great examples, great case studies, and you will definitely learn what it means to shift ahead.
Thank you for having me.